I've always been a cheerleader for gender equality and no gender discrimination because I've never considered myself a gender based role. Like I always mention, being a doctor, soldier, teacher had no gender. It was by chance that I was born a woman and continued to function in all the capacities as an individual woman. So you have three women leading the Army Medical Corps, and no one's found them incompetent or incapable because they've been nurtured the same way as the male colleagues.
You said the aim is to inspire the younger generation of ambitious, courageous women. I mean, they face unique challenges.
Say that you need to empower the men to be able to handle empowered women. Let's start with having every mother bringing up a son to respect a woman. I want every girl to be fit mind, strong body. And for that, she has to start in her 20s so that she is fit at 40, strong at 60, and independent at 80. That should be the motto.
Absolutely. Hello, everyone. I am Anuradha from the Indian Express, and it is indeed a pleasure to welcome Lieutenant General Madhuri Kanitkar for a very interesting conversation that we are going to have on ahead of International Women's Day. Of course, ma'am, it's a great pleasure to have you, and thank you for agreeing to this interview.
Thank you so much, Anuradha. It's a real pleasure, as always.
Lieutenant General Kanitkar requires no introduction, and I have to admit that even creating a brief outline was challenging due to her many, many accomplishments. However, for our viewers, Lieutenant General Madhuri Kanitkar is presently Vice Chancellor of the Maharashtra University of Health Services, Health Sciences at Nashik, a post that she took up after she retired as Deputy Chief Integrated Defense Staff. Ma'am is the third woman in the country and the first pediatrician from the armed forces to wear the rank of Lieutenant General. And interestingly, she and her husband, Lieutenant General Rajiv Kanitkar, are also the first couple in the armed forces to achieve the three-star rank. This year, in fact, a book that chronicles their journey is of 36 years is set to be released. Ma'am is also a former dean of Pune-based Armed Forces Medical College, which is a premier medical institution in the country. And of course, Dr. Kanitkar is one of the most influential voices in the country on medical education. So without further ado, I am just going to start with ma'am and the conversation. Ma'am, you have assumed many roles, performed multiple functions, taken on several responsibilities in your distinguished career, both defense and civilian. So, ahead of International Women's Day, the theme is to accelerate action, unlock equal rights, power, opportunities for all, where no one is left behind. So, what do you think is the biggest barrier in achieving a gender equal world? And how do you break it down? And and also, ma'am, in your experience as a woman leader, both in the defense and the civilian sector, what are the challenges that you have faced and how do you overcome them?
Thanks, Anuradha, for starting them off. And, I've always been a cheerleader for gender equality and no gender discrimination because I've never considered myself a gender based role. Like I always mention, being a doctor, soldier, teacher had no gender. It was by chance that I was born a woman and continued to function in all the capacities as an individual, as an officer, as a doctor, and so on and so forth. But having said that, now with the gray hair there, I find that the biggest limiting factor is the woman herself. She needs to sort of be able to be, I wouldn't say assertive, but bring out her competence and capability and everyone recognize it. If she starts with doubts in her mind, she feels that I think it just worsens. A strong woman doesn't need to be physically strong. If she's mentally strong, resilient, and capable, there's no sort of shortcuts to competence. And I think then she just needs to be courageous and say, look, I am here and I'm going to achieve what I want without having to trample on people's toes or getting into other people's territories. Like they say, you rise up either because you rise up on your own steam or you rise up because you push someone down. I think a woman doesn't need to push anyone down.
That is so true, ma'am. But talking about gender equality now, coming to the armed forces, it is a work in progress. And of course, efforts are being made to increase the representation of women and ensure equal opportunities. And I think in the last year, I think a lot of women officers have begun to command units. But, ma'am, there has been a debate. I think there was some letter which was sent to the army chief and regarding the performance of women officers, in the command roles. Uh, Basically, there was this thing about interpersonal relations and, talking to the troops. And I just don't want to get into that subject. But, taking that incident, what are the key changes do you believe, that are essential for a truly gender equal workplace? And what are the challenges that women face in the armed forces? What are the learnings that perhaps can be taken from the civilian side as well?
I think first and foremost, that was a case in isolation. But having said that, I respect the sentiments of the general officer who felt that so. But look at the reason. I think when a thing like that happens, we can either say that, oh, all are bad, or say, why did this happen? I mean, they were competent, capable girls, and they went on to command. Did we nurture them the way we nurture our male officers? When there is a beginning, there are always teething problems. You see a officer who goes on to command along his normal chain, does all the courses, is put into all those situations. Because girls were not given permanent commission, they were not doing the necessary courses. I mean, I'm sure none of them have done staff college or, I don't know how many did the junior command college course. As against that, you see, where women were there for many years in the Army Medical Corps, has there been any case where a officer found a woman because she's a woman incompetent of she also handles troops? In fact, as I speak today, the DG AFMS is a woman, the DGMS Army is a woman, the DGMS Air Force is Navy is a woman. So you have three women leading the Army Medical Corps, and no one's found them incompetent or incapable because they've been nurtured the same way as the male colleagues. I mean, we were not differentiated in anything. There was a small difference, which was even then that was overcome. And I'll tell you because I was responsible for bringing about that change. Pregnancy was considered a low medical category situation, and we were not permitted to do courses. So when we did our post graduation, it was called an advanced course or career course for post graduation, and you were considered unfit. But we took that matter up and said, okay, she may take a little longer, she may take a 6-month break as per her entitled maternity leave. We can increase her term, but we can't make her unfit to do a course. And the medical rules changed. We permit them to continue doing their post graduation and continue to work as specialists. So I think when a problem comes, the answer is in finding solutions. So I would say that let's look at it with a different lens and say, were they adequately trained? Did they have their tools? You can't send a person into a war without a gun, without the necessary armory or whatever support that's required. If you do that, then you compare them on the same scale as those who went with it. But if you tied up a person and gave them limitations and then threw them into the water and expected them to come running as winners, it would be a little unfair.
That is actually, that's really true what you're saying. Ma'am, I want to also take you back to the time when you were, in the committee, the Prime Minister's Science, Technology and Innovation Advisory Council. And, what was the vibe like? And what are the kind of challenges that you faced? I'm particularly interested is
Firstly, I still am in that, what they call the PM STIAC.
right.
And it's with the principal scientific advisor. We are 7 members from different walks of life, different fields, and we are 2 women. Sangamitra Bandyopadhyay, who's the director at the Indian Statistical Institute in Kolkata, and myself, who's now the vice chancellor. And it's a real pleasure and honor interacting them with all the people where we discuss national missions and we discuss them with an open mind, with no gender lens, with no background lens, because I mean, it could be a subject on quantum physics, and I still get to have a thought on it. Or it might be like last time we were discussing gene and cell and gene therapy, and we had even Sangamitra giving the perspective of a scientist who is not really related with this field, or Kiran, who's Dr. Kiran Kumar, who is from the, he had been with the ISRO director earlier, chairman, he's on the board. So we have a very diverse, and I think that churns out a real holistic. So if you look at what you said is from the civilian thing, bringing it into any field of life, I think diversity, inclusivity is the keyword. It's been touted as DIE, diversity, inclusive, equitability. But when we come to practicing it, we may not always do it. But when it's done, I think it really brings out the best in, because you get perspectives. Decision could be anything, but it's important to listen to every voice. And if you said this year's thing is about accelerating, about taking, picking up speed and going ahead faster, we want to be disruptive. India is ready to and raring to go with this youth population. Can we do acceleration with only one engine when you're supposed to run on two? You can't. So you need both the genders to contribute in their full potential to give that, full thrust and full takeoff for the country. And I think it's very important and very apt that this year that is the theme for the Women's Day.
Absolutely, ma'am. So, again, just taking it forward, I'd just like to ask you, how do you balance leadership and personal life in a world actually that often sets a lot of different expectations from women? And, how do you kind of manage that?
I don't think you need to. That's one place I think a woman doesn't need to manage. Some things come very naturally to her. I mean, it's a little unfair because there would be male colleagues listening on to this, but I said we're born with two X chromosomes, and I think that gives us a little edge of having the head and heart, two organs which work very, very nicely. I mean, that's the difference I see when I'm interacting with people. Like, I'll be quite upset about something, but I'd be giving my head and giving the full this thing of ruling the situation with the head. But when it comes to actually implementing things, I find I can really lead with my heart. And I think that combination of head and heart comes a little more naturally because whether we are wired differently, men are from Mars and women from Venus, so whether it's because of our nurturing, having done those for years. We've balanced this thing of running a home, bringing up a family, the children, and our careers. So we probably may have burnt our candles at both ends, but that also has brought in a certain area of expertise, a certain confidence and capability of doing these in tandem. And therefore, I feel it's become part of our gender and our capabilities to handle both ends. And I think that
Right,
is the
ma'am.
key word of nurturing.
Ma'am, I couldn't resist asking you this question because in multiple interviews with you, I mean, you're the second woman who's heading the Maharashtra University of Health Sciences. And, you have always said that the university's soul lies in post-graduation, postdoctoral research. So, how do you align it with the kind of patient care and, where are we in that space?
I think that's such a beautiful question because this was something, and again, it's coincidental that I first heard of this concept from the first woman vice chancellor, who was also a pediatrician, Dr. Mrudula Phadke, and I really look up to her as a mentor. And when she was the vice chancellor, she brought in certain things, started certain departments in the university for bringing in academics because the parliament, by the act of parliament, it was more of an affiliating university, but it just meant paperwork and, there was nothing. And being pediatricians, we say health is growth and development. Unless you're growing, unless you're developing, it's not a healthy child. So she tried bringing in, but then things didn't take off as they should have. And but however, I had that beautiful foundation that she'd laid. and reviving those and adding to what the next set of vice chancellors adding. I think that was the biggest. And the biggest difference I felt was what the armed forces teaches us. One is to have boots on the ground. So as a vice chancellor, I was the first vice chancellor who lived on the campus. It is such a beautiful campus, but for some reason, being on the outskirts of the city, it had overgrown, become a jungle with wild animals. And they told me the leopards and the snakes, they roam here. No one ever lives here. You just come work and go back. But I felt I can't get a soul into it if I'm not there. And so, in lighter vein, I joked with my team and said, okay, if they've got leopards and snakes, the campus needs a tigress, and I'm coming. So that became quite a joke. And and things started actually. And, all my team really realized that I mean business. And today, instead of it coming and just doing a work, the 600 people who work here have started identifying it with certain ownership and belonging. I think for anything, whether, the way our prime minister says that it has to be that, your fierce involvement, dedication, a commitment, it's not about authority. It's about an ownership. And if you can bring that into any team, I think the outcome is absolutely amazing. And that's what has happened in this year. And I think the woman's strength is a bigger strength there.
But ma'am, on that note, also, I would like to ask you some questions which are related to the incidences that's happening currently in the country. There are cases of ragging. I mean, we're listening to what's happening in Kerala, and you know, uh, it's kind of getting a little tricky how to deal with these situations, especially when you are in such an authoritative figure. So, how do you deal with it?
Yeah. I think the first and foremost is in sort of getting children to be, trust in them and having communications open. Problems generally start when you don't have these communication channels. And today, with nuclear families and children being uprooted from that little kingdom that they are born and nurtured in, most of them maybe a single child or two children, and they, with our system where children are moving out of their states and going, there is a bit of an isolated feeling. And the second thing is because of the bringing up of the small families and nuclear families, the resilience I find in children is lesser. They crack open or get stressed very fast. So we need to take that into account, but having communication channels are open. And I'll give you a simple example. I mean, these problems will happen. World over, you have shooting incidents, you have some rapes. These are aberrations of society which we have to find solutions to. But how to prevent or reduce it to a minimal? I think one is building a resilience among our children, trusting them, giving them certain, having role models too, and keeping communication channels open. A simple initiative that we've started at MUHS, we call it Kulaguru Ka Katta. I mean, it was my attempt at being open and transparent. And we go every region, every month I visit with my registrar, controller of examinations, and we listen to about 150 students coming up with problems. And we are now ready to publish how many changes in policies we brought out listening to the students. So, it has two things. Firstly, we find solutions. Secondly, students have learned that they don't need to protest, they don't need to fight. They can approach the university and find a solution. So I'm very happy that neither the Maharashtra Association of Resident Doctors, my undergraduates, I mean, none of them get into these protest situations because we've created a platform for them to open up, speak, send emails, and there's someone addressing it. Understanding the resilience, we've started a Manas Samvad and a Manas application where all our students are getting mental wellness. We're not bothered about treating the sick. There are psychiatrists and they can work. But to build up robustness, we do continuously round the year. We're doing workshops, whether it's pre-exam, whether it's pre-this, and we have kids joining in, and there we tell them this is a helpline. Don't give up. Just speak to someone. So that I think is a very important aspect.
Absolutely. And I also remember, ma'am, you have said that, when you said the aim is to inspire the younger generation of ambitious, courageous women, I mean, they face unique challenges today. So if you could elaborate on that, because I remember you saying that life can't always be my way or the highway. So, what is that one message that you would like to share with our youngsters?
I think important to continue. See, when I see the younger youth, I really envy them. They have so much. They have so much of information. They have so much of chemistry. They have so much of each other, and they're very free and open across the genders. But as they sort of grow up, if they've not been able to respect each other, and they go into the stereotype roles, you have a mismatch. I think that is a problem with the younger generation where they're used to quick fix solutions. They want, immediate resolution of issues. They want early gratification on anything that they do with their instas and social media. But that connectedness is reduced. And the girls are moving much faster on this highway, and I'm not very certain the boys are keeping up on the same. With all the policies and encouragement, women are doing extremely well. But the men need to learn. I say that you need to empower the men to be able to handle empowered women. And I
So
don't
how
know
do we
whether.
do that? How
So
do we
it
do
would, you start in every household. So I tell every mother, I think let's start with having every mother bringing up a son to respect a woman. If we start at that point and say that you're equally responsible for everything, whether it's running the home, whether it's cooking, whether it's, some of us are very lucky. I mean, I'm sure all of us who are the senior ones who've done well have had very supporting spouses. But to continue with that as a general rule, it would need to change a generation, and the change can happen only in infancy and childhood. So teaching them at home would start, and then at school. At school, where you have co-ed schools, you let them mingle, you let them, but you teach them to respect each other. I think if that message is repeatedly sent out to the youth, they would be able to. I mean, gone are the stereotypic days that my husband has to earn more than me, or my husband has to be the. If I want my independence, I should be the modern day these things of khaki. We need not look down upon it. If the husband decides to stay home and look after the children while the wife is working, why not? So we have to get out. So it is the senior people who have to get out of these stereotypic roles to let the youth really go ahead on shoulder to shoulder, gender irrespective.
That is absolutely true. And on that note, ma'am, I'm going to thank you so much for your time. And it's really been a pleasure and listening to everything that you have been saying. And our viewers, the Knit Express, if you like this conversation and this, please do share. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you, ma'am.
Anuradha, I can't not have the last word. While you thank everyone, I'm going to leave everyone with a food for thought. The being a doctor, I want every girl to be fit mind, strong body, and for that she has to start in her 20s so that she's fit at 40, strong at 60, and independent at 80. That should be the motto. And
Absolutely.
thank you so much
Absolutely, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you so much.
for being with you. Thank you so much.